Welcome to the Rams preview episode where we dive into last week's game against the Texans, but look forward to the Bengals game. I am Gilbert Manzano, OC Register, LA Daily News, beat reporter covering the Rams. Joining me, as always, Victor Corona, who I like to call Victor Producer. Victor, I think we're almost at the finish line. It's a third preseason game, the preseason finale, kind of a rematch. I don't know. Rams, Bengals. Are you excited about this being the finish line?
Yes, I'm glad we're finally here. Like we've been waiting all off season to get to this point. They have one more practice to go, one more scrimmage. Training camp will be over. Preseason will finally be over, and we can get to the opening game versus the Bills. What
Yeah,
about
Victor.
yourself? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm excited to just kind of move forward, and but the crazy thing is like there's still so much to talk about last week, and so much to talk about for the third preseason game, so we can't get too far ahead. And that's what we have this preview episode again, Rams against the Bengals. But I just want to say thank you to the people who watched the last episode, Victor, because that video did pretty well. Rams versus Texans preview, and it's only preseason, but people were watching. I was checking the views. I think you were too, Victor. So
Yes.
thank you for watching the video on Compas on the Beat. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. Listen on Spotify, Apple. So we're gonna keep these coming. And Victor, I have a feeling we're gonna just keep doing it during the season. So I think we're gonna get a podcast going, a Rams podcast going. It's sounding serious. We are in talks right now, negotiations. You and I, Victor. And if you want to see more Rams stuff, more content, you want to see a Rams podcast show from me and Victor Producer, leave a comment in this video. Say, yes, we want a podcast. We want a Rams podcast. Let us know that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, especially with you being there in training camp, you have all the information for them. Actually, talking about that, that's a great segue for a video you took that's been blowing up on your TikTok. So let's have the people get a look at this.
Hey, we can have this look. Gun far. Go on. That motherfucker tired, boss. Go on. Oh, man. Just stop doing that, scared. That motherfucker tired, boss. That a point.
Can you give us the background behind this video?
Yeah, especially I'm sure the audio listeners are like, what's going on here? What is just a bunch of like far distance voices that I'm hearing here? So to break it down for the audio people and for the viewers on YouTube, that was a video of Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in the world for the Rams. Aaron Donald making Coach Eric Henderson, the D-line coach, run game coordinator for the Rams. He's making him work. And that was a special drill they do before practices. And it was like Eric Henderson, like, hey, we got to pick it up today. And he was asking for a lot from the players. And sure enough, the first guy up is Aaron Donald. And then he's like, after the first kind of like bull rush on the sleds, he's tired. He's breathing hard. And the coaches are giving him some flack. Aaron Donald saying, hey, stop being scared, pick it up. So I thought that was a funny video from training camp. And just to give myself a little plug here, Victor, if you don't mind, I posted that video on TikTok at gmontana24. Same as the Twitter handle. Again, at gmontana24. Follow on TikTok, subscribe, all that stuff. That video blew up. I got over 400,000 views. So people like seeing Aaron Donald put in the work, regardless of if it's against a sled, against a coach. They just want to see those videos. And hopefully it didn't make Coach Henny look bad, because I wanted to show like these guys are just having fun out there, and they put in the work. And there's a bond. Like, you got to earn respect from Aaron Donald. Like, you got to put in a lot of work, and that's Eric Henderson right there showing like, hey, you want to be great? Let me push you where I'm pushing my whole body to help you out. So I thought that was a cool video between those two guys.
No, and it shows how much work Aaron Donald. Like, if you're worried that you're gonna get a letdown after the Super Bowl, there's your captain right there on defense, just showing how much he wants to repeat. So if anybody is questioning whether the Rams are up for it, Aaron Donald is there for you.
Yeah, if the best player in the world is putting in that much work and getting the coaches tired, you have no excuse, no matter who you are on that roster. But Victor, before we go into last week's game against the Texans and the preview against the Bengals, It's just funny saying Super Bowl rematch, right? In training camp.
You're right.
I couldn't be out there for the Bengals scrimmages in Cincinnati. I'm a little bummed, but it's okay. We're watching here from a distance. We're holding it down. But I still feel like that game last week told us a lot about what to expect for the preseason finale.
Well, that's a great segue for us because we're going to start with what we saw last week between the quarterbacks. And as far as coming from me, I mean those 5 sacks that Wolford took were pretty huge in my eyes. Like, Bryce Perkins took a step up, and he might have passed him if you were asking me. But what are your thoughts? You're the one covering the team.
Yeah, this is kind of a surprise QB2 battle in the middle of the summer. Nobody was expecting a QB2 battle. It was already set. Like even before Luis Perez got cut, like everybody knew it was a 1, 2, 3, 4. It was Stafford, Wolford, Perkins, Luis Perez. Luis Perez got cut, and then they tried giving Wolford a game to just get some rust off because Stafford is doing well. That arm soreness kind of mess is done with and over with. He's fine. So they wanted Wolford to be out there to get some rust off. And I don't know where a QB2 battle developed, Victor. Bryce Perkins was accurate. He's mobile. And the thing with Bryce Perkins, he keeps getting better and better as a pocket passer. We all know how, he's mobile, extends plays, has a nice little deep ball, but he's staying in the pocket, making a first read, a second read, a third read, and just making great throw. I think he was 11 of 13, and that's pretty great for accuracy. So, and he had the best drive of the game against the Texans. It was a really ugly game, by the way, Victor.
It was.
But that was the best drive that Bryce Perkins operated. Now, you kind of feel for John Wolford because he had very poor offensive line play. I get it's the backups, but he was out there running for his life. He had some nice throws to Lance McCutcheon, who we'll get into. Keeps making plays. But when he was trying to sit in the pocket, he couldn't do it because it was collapsing quickly, and he's not as mobile as Bryce Perkins. And the best way to kind of get Wolford going is on a bootleg rollout and get the ball out. But even that wasn't working. So it became a real story after where, us, the reporters, were talking to Sean McVay in the post-game show, and we're like, hey, is it more than just knocking off some rust for John Wolford? Is it a real QB2 battle? And he could have easily been like, nah, it's just it's all good now. He was like, we're evaluating that position. We're keeping our eyes, on that.
And that's not something you want to hear.
And he doubled down twice, Victor. Like, he said, John Wolford did what he could do in a bad situation, was fair. And then he praised Wolford, and then he really, really praised Perkins. Like, that guy's a playmaker. That guy had the best touchdown drive of the game. And yes, definitely we're evaluating that position. That's when you knew, okay, there's a QB2 battle in play. So that's going to be a big thing to watch in that Bengals game. And, we're recording a little early. That game's on Saturday. So we still don't know as we're recording who's going to be the starter. But those two guys are going to be out there for the QB2 battle.
Yeah, and I mean, I went into it thinking, okay, we're gonna see Wolford, and that'll be it, and then like I said, we even talked about it last week. Like, I think Bryce Perkins is pretty much gonna get most of the game on against the Bengals. I don't feel that way. Like, looking at that game, what Bryce Perkins was able to do with some of those rollouts, like maybe the offensive coordinator, the person who was calling the plays, because I saw McVay wasn't calling all the plays at all times, didn't do Wolford any favors, but Perkins, he made plays. Like, he made things out of nothing, and for me, that's impressive, and that's something you're gonna need in a quarterback as a backup.
Yeah, definitely. And like, the thing you want is not for the backup to play at all. You want your starter to be out there, but if things happen, like, you got to be ready to go. And if the quarterback's not your answer, and I get it that maybe you have to kind of change the scheme a lot from Perkins to Stafford, and Wolford's more of Stafford kind of thing, and it's easier just to kind of run the system. That could be something that really benefits John Wolford, because when you have Perkins, you have to go into like these personnel 12 double tight ends, more max protection, because this guy likes to kind of keep the pocket going and extend plays. So you want to give him as much opportunities to create with his legs and get downfield. But it doesn't seem like it takes that much to make it work with Perkins, because of what I said earlier. he's an improved pocket passer. He could do all what obviously not to the same extent, but he could do and run a system like Stafford does. And I don't know how well he could do it, but and that can be the excuse though. If the guy's making plays, don't blame it on like, hey, the system's going to change a lot if we put him in there.
Yeah, and I mean, just we're gonna find out who they go with. You brought up McCutcheon earlier, Lance McCutcheon, and we got the big news right after the next day. Kendall Bland got cut. So who does that benefit? Jacob Harris or Lance McCutcheon, or is it both?
Yeah, I want to say both, Victor. It's a good question, and what a surprise, Kendall Blanton being waived last week. I was not expecting him to be on the 85 to 80 cut, and I think it's more of a respect thing, by the way. Because of what Kendall's done the last couple of years. Like, hey, get in the market early. Someone will claim you. You don't have to be in that mess of the 53 cut down where everybody's trying to find a job. So he got picked up quickly. He's with Washington, the Commanders now. So Kendall Blanton moves on. But to answer your question, I'm going to lean and give you a real answer. I'm going to lean Jacob Harris just because Jacob Harris has played tight end before. And it's crazy, Victor. I don't know if you could recall this. You've been watching football for a long time where a team just carries two tight ends. And that's going to be a very thin position. But they could do that because a guy like Jacob Harris is big. He's physical. He didn't just forget how to play tight end within a year. Last year he was a tight end. This year he's going into wide receiver. And it was funny because the whole plan was they wanted to find a spot for Jacob Harris because it was supposed to be crowded at tight end because they had three tight ends. And then he goes to wide receiver and it's crowded there too. So I think just that shows you when you're versatile. You always hear about guys in this time of year. The more you do, the better. And that's why it benefits Jacob Harris out. With Lance McCutcheon, he is a big body wide receiver. Maybe he could figure it out, but his head is probably spinning. Like he's making plays as a wide receiver, but he has to figure out special teams. Now he has to figure out tight end position. So it's a little too much for an undrafted rookie. So I will go definitely it benefits Jacob Harris, but there's no denying it because with Lance McCutcheon making plays, I think he's leading the league in preseason yards. I know nobody cares, but he's putting in a work in preseason. And the funny thing is, like I asked Sean McVay because now that we know this guy could play as a wide receiver, he needs to find a path to make it when it's 8 wide receivers in contention for the 53-man roster, and his path is special teams. So I kept asking Sean McVay, did you see the growth in special teams? And he's like, yeah. Well, he's doing okay. But man, did you see the moves he put on Derek Stingley Jr.? I'm like, yeah, we all saw it. That was a nice little route he ran against the number 3 overall pick of the 2022 draft. So Sean McVay has really, really, really noticed that you cannot give up on a playmaker like McCutcheon, and he'll figure out the rest later.
Yeah, I know we didn't discuss this, but where did that play at the end? Did that affect anything with McCutcheon where he got out? I mean, he's a rookie and he should have gotten out of bounds, but what was the thing behind it?
Yeah, McVay did mention that, like, yeah, you wish you saw the young guy kind of get out of bounds, it gave us a chance, and the funny thing was like McCutcheon also like he was more mad about fumbling at the end, which that wouldn't have mattered. There was no time on the clock anyway, so these are just small mistakes as a rookie that you have to kind of get over. And he's learning out there, and maybe that's why when like you always see guys, Victor, you mentioned last week, you see guys making plays in the preseason, but when the regular season comes, they don't do anything because they're still learning that fast pace. So I think they want to just invest in McCutcheon because if you put him on waivers, someone's going to take him, and somebody who needs a wide receiver will take them, and like, hey, we'll learn, with by trial by error kind of thing. But with him, it's like, okay, stash him for a year, and then he'll be ready to go because you're seeing the mistakes on special teams. You're seeing the mistakes on 2-minute situations. You're seeing some mistakes in blocking. So, but there's no doubt the guy can make plays as a wide receiver.
Now, moving on to a kind of something bad that happened during the game, and that was Logan Bruss getting hurt, and now we find out that he's out for the season. How is his injury now gonna affect the O-line, in your opinion?
Yeah, the only it's really no good thing about this because you feel for a kid who a rookie, he wants to make his debut and play well, like Logan Bruss, 3rd-round pick out of Wisconsin, and I heard a lot of great things about Logan Bruss, but in terms of football stuff, it didn't affect them starting wise because Coleman Shelton won that job at right guard. Logan Bruss and him were competing for the right guard job, but then you get hurt in the depth, like. Sean McVay kept talking about like this guy was gonna have a role on the team regardless if he started or not, because when you go into max protections or when you have 2 tight ends, you bring in more linemen to pretend to be tight ends, and you lose that in Logan. And now the crazy part too, Victor, is Coleman Shelton. I wasn't out there in Cincinnati, so I didn't get a chance to look if he's out there. But Coleman Shelton was dealing with swelling on Monday in his lower leg, so that shows you how thin they are now. I don't know where they had a competition at guard. Now they're super thin. So it's going to affect them. And then also kind of going off the game that you saw, that offensive line, the first couple of drives, they were terrible. And now they're being asked to be the first men up in case of emergency. And that's not good, Victor, because injuries always happen. But Sean McVay kept talking about, hopefully I didn't butcher his last name, Tremaine and Churum. He kept saying this guy's been playing well. And I actually spoke to Tremaine in the locker room. I'm going to plug my story. It's probably going to be, this video might be in that story, by the way.
No, plug, man.
So OC
let people know where they can find your stuff and what you're working on.
And it's cool because I think it is going to be, this video is going to be in that story. So if you're reading the OC Register or you've seen this video on my Twitter, go read the story. OC Register / Rams. But I spoke to Tremaine and Churum. I gotta pronounce his last name, in the locker room. Locker rooms are open, Victor. And I just wanted to get to know the guy because I saw the injury to Logan Bruss, and we didn't know yet that it was a torn ACL. But this guy was just like, man, I'm ready. And like he's like, it's my third year. I gotta be on the roster. I need that pension. I gotta go. So you could tell he's locked in. He's like, it's a stressful time of year, but Tremaine, to have that much support from Sean McVay is big. And then they also have AJ Jackson, who is going to be the swing tackle, but could also flex as a guard. So that helps out with the versatility. And then you have, hopefully I'm not forgetting, Bobby Evans, who has starting experience as a tackle and as a guard. So the one thing that might, going back to the 8 wide receivers, Victor, usually you like to keep 9 offensive linemen on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, now between 8 or 9, right?
Yeah. So now you might get away with 8. Like usually you lean with 9 because you got to have the offensive line ready to go. So I think now you could go with 8. So you create one extra roster spot for wide receiver. And the reason why I said you could go with 8, that I just named AJ Jackson, Bobby Evans. Those guys could be flexible at guard or outside at tackle. So that kind of creates some roster spots at other positions. So long-winded answer. I'm just always thinking about the 53-man roster this time of year, but Logan Bruss' injury will definitely affect them during the season when you want to have more blockers up there and more guys available in case of emergency.
What about someone like AJ Arcuri? I hope I'm not butchering his name.
I think it's Arcuri. Good name there, name drop, because that was another guy who, a lot of AJs, right? I'm thinking AJ Jackson, AJ Arcuri.
I know. I was gonna say, are you sure you're naming the right AJ?
Yeah. No. The funny thing is, the roster says a Lyric Jackson, but he goes by AJ. So I've been trying to remember that. It's like the Kobe wanted to go with Kobe. Right. So I'm learning all that as a rookie beat reporter. But AJ Arcuri, I don't know if he makes a roster now, because if you're trying to keep 8 and you want to have that one extra roster spot for a wide receiver, the first guy to go, I think, is AJ Arcuri. Victor, I was telling you that I was doing my 53-man roster as like an NCAA tournament bracket where I had the first 4 in, the first 4 out. AJ is one of the first 4 out, and it sucks right now because he's a rookie. Like, you want the guy, and he was drafted in, but he was drafted in the 7th round pick. Usually, you give your rookies who were drafted a chance the first year, but when you're that back in the 7th round and you're still trying to make the roster work, things like that happen, and I think it might affect AJ. So maybe I'll bring him up again for players to watch, but AJ might be a big game for him Saturday against the Bengals.
I know we need to move on. Yeah, I know we need to move on, but is there a chance that they wait around for players to get cut and maybe they bring in another either guard or tackle?
I could definitely see this, especially if John Wolford's out there again running for his life and the offensive line is not doing well again. You got to look at least, because you're now shorthanded with Logan Bruss out, so you got to be ready in case of emergency. And there's a talented tackle out there, you pick him up, but then you're kind of like, can we still have 8 wide receivers? So that's always going to be the problem at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you need to make sure you're protecting Stafford, so that we know how big that is. As we move on here, we finally get to see the rookie Kyren Williams, who was drafted out of Notre Dame. What are your expectations for him, and what should fans be the realistic expectations of what we see from him, because we probably won't see Cam or Darrell Henderson here.
Yeah, it's been a heavy workload for Kyren Williams the past week and a half because of Henderson and Cam Akers dealing with their injuries, and just from watching out there, a little kind of update on the starting running backs. I think Cam Akers is fine. It's more of a resting thing. Darrell Henderson, I don't know too much yet. It looks like he's probably like actually having like a real injury there. So I don't know what McVay's thinking is. He wants to just like, you probably saw Henderson's hurt. I'm not gonna risk it with Cam Akers. It feels more like that, but again, maybe they're both truly hurt. I really don't know. It's just kind of an estimation from what I'm seeing out there. But yeah, those two guys are not practicing, so that means a lot of workload for Kyren Williams and the favorite name, Jake Funk. There you go. There you go. We need like a sound drop for Jake Funk.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna work on that
for next time, and I think he might make the roster too. So we're gonna keep that name around, Jake Funk. But yeah, it's gonna be good for Kyren Williams out, especially. Also, it's a good sign that they're willing to put him out there now for a preseason game, because now maybe again Cam Akers is ready to go, or maybe they're both ready to go. Henderson too. So that's why they want to have Kyren Williams out there to at least get some kind of snaps out there and feel fine. Because remember last week they were making it seem like it was insurance. They don't want to put him out there. They want to risk it. But he's been out there for the joint scrimmages from what I read, and he's going to be playing Saturday. So yeah, I want to see what he could do. He's kind of a smaller back, but he has a big frame, shifty, can make the cuts. I want to see, can he be a pass catcher, running back? And the biggest thing, Victor, is can he pass protect? That's if you want to be on the roster and contribute, you better pass protect. So we got to see all that for Kyren Williams, and that's gonna be a big thing. I was thinking as a writer, you're trying to think ahead because these games are kind of late, and you want to get them over. I'm like, what am I gonna talk about for the third preseason game? Like we've already done the QB2 battle, but I guess I could do that again. But Kyren Williams is gonna be probably my main takeaway for that game.
Yeah, no, and like you said, I mean, they don't carry a fullback as far as I know. So,
no.
I mean, you need somebody to protect, like that's another player you can use as a chip and stuff like that. So, yeah, if he hasn't, we're going to see him try to block. So, yeah, it'll be good to see him. But now we're going to move on to players to watch for this game.
Yes.
And before I ask you about the players, I kind of wanted to give one of the players that stood out was Jonah Williams.
You want to say Jonah Hill, huh?
Yeah, Jonah. Yeah, I did. Jonah Williams. So there's another Jonah Williams who's a offensive lineman for the Bengals. So I kind of want to see Jonah versus Jonah. So that'll be kind of cool. But what about you? What players are you looking to watch for this game?
Yeah, it's funny because, again, I like to say kind of my rookie mistakes as a beat reporter. I didn't know too much of Jonah Williams. So when he was making plays out there last week, I'm like, Jonah Williams, one, is it not Jonah Hill, the actor, or Jonah Williams, the guy from the Bengals? I'm like, there's two of them. And I had to look him up, and, he impressed out there. So, yeah, it'd be funny if they kind of match up. But I think maybe Jonah Williams is the starter, right? He probably won't be out there.
Yeah, I probably won't see him.
For that game.
But that'd be kind of cool, though.
Yeah. It's like the Spider-Man meme. They're looking at each other.
Yeah, I know.
But he stood out, and that's why I think doing my 53-man roster, I have him as one of the guys in. I guess the last four in would be the word here, because there's some injuries at other positions that might create a spot for Jonah Williams. Like Daniel Hardy got hurt too. We didn't even touch on that. He
got a sack as one of the players that you said, and I even tweeted that out. Like, yeah,
we got it right, and then he got hurt.
Right.
He had ankle injury, surgery.
We still get a point for that, right? Or at least you do.
And then and then Kobe Durant had him a good game too, and Darion Kendrick had he flashed. Kobe flashed, and Darion Kendrick had a fumble recovery. So, and Jonah Williams had the sack. So these guys, I want to see more than all these guys I'm naming, but. Yeah, I know it sucks for the Rams to have some injuries, but that's creating roster spots. So my 53-man roster as of now is getting a little easier to do now, when I'm just guessing about injuries. But a guy like Jonah Williams was one of the first four out or in, I forget the word.
Yeah, first four in.
Yeah, in. He could easily lose a job with a poor performance, or like a linebacker Jake Garvey. So hopefully I'm saying his last name right. Garvey.
Garvey.
So I got to do better. It's another rookie.
Hey, we're both learning on the fly here with with some of these names.
We got to get Anchurum or Curry, Garvey. But Marcus Copeland is another guy, defensive tackle. Jake Hummel, linebacker. Jake Hummel is going to be big for special teams. But again, when you're having 8 wide receivers, you got to take from somewhere. And maybe Jake Hummel might lose a spot because, as you know, Victor, inside linebackers are not, I guess people don't want them as much as they used to. When you have Bobby Wagner and Ernest Jones, you usually get away with 2 or 3 inside linebackers. So he could be there, but he's big for special teams. I mean, so yeah, Jonah Williams, Jake Hummel, these guys have to prove it because nothing is safe for these guys. So these are the guys I want to watch. But obviously, guys like Darron Kendrick and Kobe Durant are safe. But these guys in the back end of the roster, the first 4 out or first 4 in, they gotta prove it on Saturday night.
Yeah, no, for me it's going to be Bryce Perkins. I just want to see what next step he takes, because I think I just don't, if like you keep saying, if you're going to keep 8 wide receivers, I just don't think you need two quarterbacks. And I think it might make Wolford,
Wow.
not make the team, but that's just me. But we'll see. Maybe we'll see
Wow.
something different against the Bengals. That's me. That's me.
And I was gonna say, like nobody saw Kendall Blanton being waived coming, and then now that kind of shows you when you have many crowded positions, they're gonna get kind of like crazy or surprises. So that could be one, Victor. I'll be shocked if John Wolford doesn't make it and Bryce Perkins number 2. But now the more I'm thinking about it, the more I could see it now, because you're right. You don't want to deplete your trenches, defensive line, offensive line, other positions, because you already did it at tight end. So maybe that could be something. And we'll get back to this video, Victor, if you're right on on 2 QBs for 53-man roster.
Yep. And let's end the show here. Is there anything you want to plug before we go? And any stories you got coming? Anything you got cooking for Ram fans out there who read your stuff?
Yeah, if you're watching this video and you're reading the stories, the previews for the Bengals game, definitely check out the recap. I don't have boring recaps. I try to give you like what's to come. Like this show here, we're doing what's to come on this game. So after the Bengals game, I'm gonna have a quick insight on Kyren Williams, but I'm gonna start looking ahead for the 53-man roster. So you want to have an idea of where the 53-man roster stands? Check out my story Saturday night at the Orange County Register. We have a newsletter there too, Horn Blast, and subscribe to that. And then also everything we're doing here at Compas on the Beat. Again, I think we're in serious talks. We're going to close it down, Victor, to create a podcast, a Ram-centric podcast. So again, comment here if you want us to do that. If you enjoy these videos, give it a like. We'll do a podcast for, based on the Rams and do it for the whole year. So check out everything we're doing on Compas on the Beat. We talk NFL, but we also like combat sports. So if you're into boxing, MMA, pro wrestling, check out Combat Compas. We create a YouTube channel for that. So
let them know who you guys had on Compas.
It's so much I can't remember, Victor. So I'm glad you're setting me up. Yes, former heavyweight champion of the world, Andy Ruiz Jr., the Destroyer, is fighting Luis Ortiz on September 4th. So he came on the show to talk about that fight and a potential fight against Deontay Wilder. So if you're a big boxing fan, go to Combat Compas. Watch it at least, give it a like, but definitely subscribe because we're growing this podcast. We have a lot of NFL. Hopefully, eventually, Victor, we're gonna get into House of the Dragon on the show. I did watch the first episode. We'll get into it.
Oh, nice.
But pop culture, NFL, we just try to have fun. So please support Compas on the Beat.
Yeah, please, give us all the 5 stars. Let us know how we're doing. The reviews help, so please, if you can leave a comment, anything helps. We got you covered, like in terms of the Rams, the Chargers. We got NFL, like the guys will talk about the Compas will talk about the NFL. We got everything you need here. So yeah, so this is it, Gil.
All right, I'm ready to get to that finish line, get to the final preseason game, the Super Bowl rematch, I guess. Victor, Bengals against the Rams. Let's get this game over with and move on to the 53-man roster. So on that note, Victor, thank you again, by the way, for joining me. But on that note, nos vamos, pues, vámonos.